In March 1922, a small farm in Bavaria became the center of one of Germany's most disturbing unsolved mysteries. The farm was called Hinterkaifeck. It stood in an isolated area between the Bavarian towns of Ingolstadt and Schrobenhausen. 6 people lived there: Andreas Gruber, his wife Cecilia, their widowed daughter Victoria Gabriel, Victoria's 7-year-old daughter Cecilia, her 2-year-old son Josef, and a newly hired maid named Maria Baumgartner. At first, nothing seemed unusual, but in the days before the murders, strange things began happening around the farm. Andreas Gruber told people that he had discovered footprints in the fresh snow. The tracks appeared to lead from the forest toward the farm. But according to his account, he could not find any tracks leading back into the forest. Someone appeared to have walked toward Hinterkaifeck. But where had that person gone? Gruber also reported hearing footsteps in the attic. He searched the building, but he found no one. There were other unsettling details. A newspaper from Munich was discovered on the property, even though the family did not remember buying it. The family dog was also behaving strangely. And despite these warnings, no police investigation was launched. Andreas Gruber reportedly told people about what he had seen, but he refused offers of help. Then, on March 31st, 1922, a new maid arrived at the farm. Her name was Maria Baumgartner. It was her first day at Hinterkaifeck. Her sister accompanied her to the farm. She stayed for a short time and then left. Maria would never leave the farm alive. That night, something happened at Hinterkaifeck. Investigators later concluded that the 6 people were killed sometime during the night of March 31st and April 1st. But no one knows exactly how the killer entered the farm, and no one knows why the victims were targeted. 4 of the victims were believed to have been lured into the barn or stable area. There, they were attacked with a farm tool. Later, the killer entered the living quarters. Maria Baumgartner was killed in her room, and little Josef was killed while he was still in his bed. 6 people were dead, but the killer did not immediately leave. According to the investigation, someone remained on the property after the murders. The animals were fed, food was consumed, and the farm did not immediately appear abandoned. Meanwhile, outside the farm, nobody knew what had happened. On April 1st, visitors came to the property. They received no answer. Days passed. The family did not appear at church. The young girl did not return to school. Still, no one immediately discovered the bodies. Then, on April 4th, 4 days after the murders, 3 neighbors finally entered the property. What they discovered inside would shock the entire region. 6 people were dead, and the most disturbing part of the mystery was only beginning. Because when investigators examined the farm, they found evidence suggesting that someone may have been there after the murders, someone who had remained in the shadows, while the 6 victims lay dead nearby. And then investigators discovered another disturbing clue. The killer had apparently left the murder weapon behind, but if the weapon was still there, where was the killer? And why had nobody seen him leave? The investigation had officially begun, but the answers would prove much harder to find than anyone expected. The investigation had officially begun, but the answers would prove much harder to find than anyone expected. On April 4th, 1922, 4 days after the murders, 3 neighbors finally entered the Hinterkaifeck farm. What they found was horrifying. 6 people were dead. The bodies of Andreas Gruber, his wife Cecilia, their daughter Victoria, Victoria's 2 children, and the new maid, Maria Baumgartner, were discovered on the property. Most of the victims had suffered severe injuries to the head. The first investigators believed a farm tool had been used to kill them, but the murder weapon itself was not immediately found. That made the investigation even more difficult. The crime scene was also far from secure. Neighbors and curious visitors had already moved around the property before the police investigation was properly established. Some evidence may have been disturbed or lost. Investigators began reconstructing what had happened. 4 of the victims were found in the barn area. Maria Baumgartner was found inside the living quarters. Little Josef was found in his bed. The scene suggested that the attacks had happened in different parts of the farm. But why? Why had the victims been separated? And why had nobody outside the farm heard anything? The investigators also examined the strange events reported before the murders. Just 2 days before the killings, Andreas Gruber had told a neighbor about footprints in the fresh snow. The tracks appeared to lead from the forest toward the farm, but according to the testimony, there seemed to be no corresponding tracks leading away. Gruber also reported signs of an attempted break-in. The lock on the machine house had been damaged, and there were signs of forced entry near another door. Yet nothing important appeared to have been stolen. Then there was the story of footsteps in the attic. The family had reportedly heard someone walking above them. Andreas searched the attic, but he found nobody. He told people about what had happened. He even received offers of help, but he did not report the incidents to police. And 2 days later, he was dead. As investigators examined the farm, another disturbing possibility emerged. Someone may have remained on the property after the murders. The animals had apparently been fed. Food had been consumed, and the farm did not immediately look completely abandoned. If that reconstruction was correct, the killer may have stayed near the bodies for some time, but this could never be proven with certainty. Then, investigators made another important discovery. The murder weapon had been left behind. It was a farm tool known as a mattock, but it wasn't immediately discovered. The weapon was eventually found hidden in the farm's loft, under a board. When the property was being demolished, investigators later concluded that the weapon was consistent with the injuries found on the victims. But finding the weapon did not reveal the killer's identity. Investigators began questioning people from the surrounding area. Travelers, workers, strangers, people who had known the family, and people who had reasons to dislike them. But no suspect could be proven to have committed the murders. Then, another problem appeared. The original crime scene had already been disturbed before investigators could fully document it. People had walked through the property. Objects had been moved, and some details could no longer be reconstructed with certainty. Even the famous footprints in the snow became controversial. Some witnesses described tracks leading toward the farm without obvious tracks leading away. But later investigators also documented other footprints that had appeared after the murders and were most likely caused by visitors or workers. So not every footprint connected to Hinterkaifeck could be considered evidence of the killer. The deeper investigators looked, the more complicated the case became. There were strange warnings before the murders. 6 victims, a hidden murder weapon, and a farm where someone may have remained after the killings. But there was still no name, no confession, and no definitive motive. The investigation would continue for years. Dozens of theories would emerge, and eventually investigators would focus on one of the most important questions of all. Who had a reason to kill the 6 people of Hinterkaifeck? And could someone who knew the family have been hiding in plain sight? The killer had left behind the weapon, but not his identity. After the discovery of the 6 bodies, investigators began looking closely at the people who had known the family, and there was no shortage of suspects. Hinterkaifeck was an isolated farm, but the Gruber and Gabriel families were not unknown to the people around them. Investigators examined family relationships, personal conflicts, financial problems, and rumors surrounding the household. One of the most important questions was whether the murders had been committed by a stranger or by someone who already knew the victims. The strange events before the murders made the second possibility difficult to ignore. Someone had apparently been around the farm. Someone may have watched the family, and someone may have known the layout of the property. But suspicion was not enough. Investigators needed evidence, and that evidence was difficult to find. One man who attracted attention was Carl Gabriel, the husband of Victoria. He had been reported missing and was believed to have died during the First World War. But despite later rumors, there was no reliable evidence that he had survived the war and returned to Hinterkaifeck. Another line of suspicion focused on people who had personal connections to Victoria. Her private life had been complicated. She had previously been involved in a relationship that had created conflict and scandal within the community. Investigators examined these relationships carefully, but once again, no suspect could be conclusively connected to all 6 murders. Then there was the possibility of robbery, but robbery did not provide a convincing explanation for everything that happened at Hinterkaifeck. Valuable objects were not simply taken, and the strange events before the murders remained unexplained. What about the footprints? What about the footsteps in the attic? What about the newspaper that apparently appeared at the farm? What about the fact that someone may have remained on the property after the killings? Each clue seemed important, but none of them led investigators to a confirmed killer. As the years passed, the investigation continued. Hundreds of people were questioned. Different suspects were considered, and several theories were proposed, but there was never enough evidence to bring the case to a definitive conclusion. Then, decades later, investigators tried something different. In 1986, a police investigator named Conrad Miller was still interested in the case. He reportedly believed that the murderer was probably someone familiar with the family and the area. But even after all those years, the identity of the killer remained unknown. The farm itself was eventually demolished. The physical place where the murders happened disappeared, but the mystery did not. More than 100 years later, Hinterkaifeck remains one of Germany's most famous unsolved murder cases. 6 people were killed. The murder weapon was eventually found. The suspects were investigated. The strange warnings before the murders were documented. But one thing was never discovered: the identity of the killer. Maybe the murderer was someone the family knew. Maybe it was a stranger who had been watching the farm. Maybe one of the many theories surrounding Hinterkaifeck is closer to the truth than we realize. Or maybe the most important evidence disappeared long ago. Today, the farm is gone. The people who lived there are gone. The witnesses are gone, and the person who knew exactly what happened that night may have taken the truth to the grave. More than a century has passed, but one question remains. Who killed the 6 people of Hinterkaifeck and why? We may never know. 6 victims, 1 farm, 1 unsolved mystery. Hinterkaifeck, 1922. Still unsolved. What do you think happened at Hinterkaifeck? Was the killer someone the family knew? Or was a stranger watching the farm from the darkness? Let me know your theory in the comments.